wisdom before opening her mouth this week. Here's her jaw-dropping exchange with an African-American caller. The woman was concerned about her interracial marriage, but the conversation turned pretty testy after Dr. Laura used the N-word.
Yeah, I think you have too much sensitivity and not enough sense of humor. Well, it depends how it's said.
Is it okay to say that word? Is it ever okay to say that word?
It depends how it's said. Black guys talking to each other seem to think it's okay.
But you're not black. They're not black. My
I see. So a word is restricted to race. Got it. Can't do much about that.
I can't believe someone like you is on the radio spewing out the and I hope everybody
I didn't spew out the word. Right. I said that's what you hear.
Heard it.
Yes, they did.
I hope everybody heard it. So
they did, and I'll say it again. Is what you hear on HB. Why don't you let me finish a sentence?
Okay.
Don't take things out of context. Don't double NAACP me. Leave them in context.
Means, and I know it came from a white person, and I know the white person made it bad.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can't have this argument. You know what? If you're that hypersensitive about color and don't have a sense of humor, don't marry out of your race.
Oh, that exchange ignited quite a firestorm of criticism. The Reverend Al Sharpton calls it despicable. Dr. Laura issued this apology.
I talk every day about doing the right thing. And yesterday, I did the wrong thing. I didn't intend to hurt people, but I did. And that makes it the wrong thing to have done. I was attempting to make a philosophical point, and I articulated the N-word all the way out, more than one time. And that was wrong. I'll say it again. That was wrong.
Dr. Laura ignited outrage before. She has referred to homosexuality as, quote, a biological error, and she has said that women may share the blame if their husband cheats on them. So let's get some more perspective, shall we? In Chicago, we've got CNN political analyst Roland Martin. And here in Atlanta, Josh Lev's checking all the buzz on the internet. Roland, let's go ahead and start with you. Look, this woman is no Dear Abby, okay? And we know her past record. She's not the most sensitive, loving person that you call into for advice.
Well, absolutely not. And I think really she mixed two different things up. First of all, this woman was calling, she's an African-American woman married to a white male, was calling and say, how do I deal with his friends and his family members making these comments? And she automatically jumps to, well, why is it racist? And then all of a sudden, comedians say these things. And so that's a whole different question. How do you deal with that? I mean, it's no different. I mean, how would she respond after Laura if a woman called in and said, you know what? My husband's friends make sexist comments. They use the B word, the C word around me, and I'm offended by it. What should I say or do? I don't think that would have been her reaction. Now, she clearly has an issue in terms of comedians and others using the N-word on stage. Look, I've addressed this issue when I ran the Chicago Defender. I put the N-word on the cover to say African Americans, either we stop using the word privately to each other, or you can't sit here and just get mad when somebody else uses it.
And Roland, isn't there a different story between Dr. Laura using it and a comedian using it?
Right, absolutely. And first of all, you know, I would hope no one uses the word, but the reality is people who are on stage, whether comedians, they talk about black folks, white folks, Asians, Native Americans, Hispanics, gays, Jews, men, women. They talk about everybody, and so it is commonly accepted in our society that when someone is on the stage, there's a different sort of there's a line you can't cross when they are on the stage. But when you're a radio talk show host, when you are in mixed company, if you are at a party or whatever, you don't pull a stage routine off the stage. That's not what you do, and so we accept that in our culture. That's understandable.
All right, let's moving away from the N-word and then this comment she made about, well, you shouldn't marry outside your race. Let's listen to this again real quickly.
I certainly wouldn't want to think anybody else was...
Don't marry out of your race. If you're going to marry out of your race, people are going to say, okay, what do blacks think? What do whites think?
All right, that's a little harsh.
First of all, it's crazy because I'm married to a black woman, and I get that question, what do blacks think? First of all, this lady was talking about several different things here in terms of the comments. The real issue was, why does her husband, why does he allow these things to be said, and he doesn't check his friend or his family members? She even said, you know, the use of racial epithets around her as if she's not even sitting there. That is a real issue for this woman, and Dr. Laura totally just blew that whole thing off. But how do you even raise this whole notion of, well, look, just don't marry outside of your race? That's nonsense. People marry folks who like them every day, and they still hear comments. So am I supposed to say, well, if I heard it walking down the street and I'm married to a black woman, I really shouldn't say anything? That's nonsensical. Dr. Laura is nuts in this area.
It was just bizarre. It just seemed so archaic, you know. It just seemed like it wasn't even happening. Roland, hold on a second. Josh, what are people saying online? Is this getting a lot of buzz? Like, have you checked her Facebook page?
Yeah.
You know,
A ton. It's getting a ton. You know, as soon as we put this up on Facebook, we started getting tons and tons of them. And there's actually a couple at the top that I think Roland might have something to say about. I think are really interesting. Here's one from Cheryl. Dr. Laura seems unaware of the racist attitudes and acceptance of racist behaviors embedded in our culture. How can a member of the dominant class of whites have anything to say about what people of color say about themselves? You know, Roland, you've done radio for years and years and years. You're an analyst on all sorts of topics. You talk about race. Do you think it's inherently offensive or for white people to even go near that conversation? And should it remain more of an internal black conversation?
No, because first of all, you can have a real conversation. What Dr. Laura should have done is, as a radio talk show host, she failed Radio 101. She should have addressed the woman's concerns and then pivoted to the issue of, why is it that it is accepted when certain folks use certain statements and other people can't? Now, she talked about race. Well, look, I know women who are friends who might call each other the B word, but if a guy uses the same word, it's like, wait a minute, you can't use that word. Let's just be honest. That's a gender issue there as well. And so she failed to actually do that. It is an issue among African Americans, and I've raised this issue before. I debated with Dr. Michael Eric Dyson on this. How can we sit here and just folks use it freely among one another, on buses, down the street, on stage, but then say if you're white, oh no, it's wrong for you to use the word. I don't find it endearing. I don't find it a word that's perfectly okay, whether you drop the ER and put an A on it or not. That makes no sense to me. So whites can have a conversation, but it's how you have a conversation, but you don't just say the N-word 6, 8, 10 times and think you're going to somehow have a decent conversation.
I'll tell you, I mean, so many people are saying exactly what you're saying. I'll just show you one from Cyrus Webb. He says, I don't agree with the way Dr. Laura did it, but it's something that has to be discussed. He says, blacks have been hiding behind this R word. We have taken it back way too long. If they don't mind saying it to each other, they shouldn't mind others saying it. You know, in the end, what's really coming out of this whole Dr. Laura incident here, and Carrie, you know this as well, is a renewal of the national conversation about the intensity of this word and what it means in so many different ways and the feelings associated with it. Ultimately, that's the opportunity here, to have another national conversation about what's going on with this word, who's using it, and who should stop. Hopefully, everybody, I think you're saying there, Roland.
And Josh, it goes beyond just the word, though, as well, because it also has to deal with the stereotypes. This woman, she called and said, wait a minute, in a relationship, people are saying it who are my husband's friends and family members. How do I deal with that? And that's the whole problem, Kira, when we have a race discussion. How do we confront those around us who hold racial stereotypes, who hold gender stereotypes? And so if we don't check the folks around us, we will never be able to confront the whole issue of race, because we let people get away with it at home, at church, around lunch, dinner, or whatever, but we don't say, wait a minute, that's not right. You shouldn't be making those kind of comments, so why do you hold those kind of stereotypes? That's the real debate that we really don't like to have, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American.
Well, we always have that debate. That's not an issue. Now, Roland, you're going to stay with me.